Round 41. Welcome. Pull up a seat to the gaming round table. Grab a mug of beer if you're able. Anyway, today's episode is episode 85 of season 3 entitled Rare and the Thieves. That's right, I want to talk a little bit about this whole Rare and the Sea of Thieves conundrum that's happened where there's a bunch of YouTubers out there and people out there that put up all these crazy videos about Sea of Thieves and how it's all hyped and all this stuff. Now I want to present this video by saying I don't own Xbox One, but it was a game that made me consider the Xbox One. But I also knew there was a lot of hype surrounding it, so I decided to wait and see what happens with the Sea of Thieves. There's going to be 2 points I'm making in this particular video, and thank you for joining me. And the video about Rare and the Thieves is this. Now, like most games, it was hyped. A lot of games, especially this game. There are some people who think that Rare and made this game for Microsoft to help sell the Game Pass, which is funny because you can get the Game Pass, get the game for dirt cheap, or it might even be free. I don't know how it works, and then you can just cancel your Game Pass and you still have the game. So bravo and kudos to people who did that. But I've also been following the game for a while now. I've been because I actually considered getting an Xbox for this particular title. And what basically happened was a lot of the game YouTubers out here who put up these videos for defending it or talking all this good stuff about it and hyping it up, the same YouTubers now have come out and basically I've seen a bunch of these videos like I was wrong about Sea of Thieves. This game reminds me of No Man's Sky, yada this, yada that. You know, another hyped game that that didn't deliver on any of its promises. And now, with the next update coming and everything that's already out, that's really turning into the game that Sean Murray, I think, actually said it was going to be. We're even getting a multiplayer update for that game, and I'm looking forward to that. But here's the whole point with Rare and the Sea of Thieves. The first point I want to make, and this is just what I want to talk about with Rare. Now, a lot of these videos are talking about how Rare, you know, they made GoldenEye, and they made on the 64, and they made Perfect Dark, and Banjo-Tooie, and they have this whole thing where the Rare was this great company, and they made Donkey Kong Country and all this stuff. Well, first of all, Dennis Doak was one of the lead designers of GoldenEye. He also worked on Perfect Dark, and he was on a lot of their high-profile titles back in the Nintendo 64 days, and some of the Super NES stuff that Rare had put out. And Rare has always been a great company up until that point. What a lot of people may or may not know, especially new gamers or even old gamers may not know, that Dennis Doak took a lot of his team, just as a and I've said this about BioWare, but took most of his team and left and formed a company called Free Radicals. And Free Radicals might sound familiar because they actually created the Time Splitters series. One was, I believe, a launch title on the PS2 or close to launch, and then 2, of course, went on to be get a lot of accolades, and so did 3. I think 2 sold a little bit better than 3, but 2 and 3 of the Time Splitters are amazing. They're still good games now. Map editor, the couch co-op, multiplayer stuff. A great game, good story, good sense of humor, good animation, good shooting. It just was. Both games are still phenomenal to this day. They're still really good games. Even now, they hold up. What a lot of people don't know, though, is Free Radicals eventually didn't really do much after that, and I think they did a Second Sight. Some of the guys worked on that game, but it didn't sell real well. I think PsyOps kind of outclips that. But I'll tell you what happened was Free Radicals eventually turned into Pandemic Studios, and they went on to give us Star Wars Battlefront 1 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. They also gave us the excellent Mercenaries, and they also gave us Mercenaries 2. They also gave us the criminally underplayed Saboteur, which was an amazing title on the Xbox 360. And if you can find it, you got to play it. It's one of the better open world games that they made. And Pandemic, of course, as you know, was ultimately bought out by EA, and then EA squashed them and put the kibosh on them, and that was that. And that was the end of it. And now those guys have gone on to do other things. My point is I'm making is that the people who worked on all these classic and good games, especially back in the day, Rare, none of those people are at Rare anymore. And none of those people who gave us GoldenEye and all those other games I mentioned earlier are at Rare. So I want to start out by saying you can't sit there and say, man, Rare used to give us all the, and I see these videos, they give us all these good titles. I can't believe that they hardly put anything in the Sea of Thieves, and it's a big as ocean and shallow as a pond. There's only 4 weapons, there's only 2 ships, there's only 3 types of quests. Like, I can't believe Rare would do that. Well, it's not the same Rare, people. It's not the same people who had that passion and drive that gave us the Golden Eyes and the Perfect Darks and the Banjo Kazooies and the frickin' Donkey Kong Country. It's not the same people. You cannot compare the Rare of today that was bought by Microsoft. And that's the other thing. Rare is a division of Microsoft. Just like BioWare is a division of EA. BioWare is their RPG development team. And most of the people who worked on Knights of the Old Republic and some of those early games that BioWare had done that were awesome, including Mass Effect, are no longer there. They're gone. So it's not even the same company, essentially. This is what's happened with Rare. I'm just throwing that out there. So anyone that wants to say that, they want to go on about, and I've seen these videos, well, Rare was such a good, they did all these good games back in the day. Well, none of those people were there anymore. It's not the same company. You cannot compare that anymore. You can't really say that. Second of all, after following Sea of Thieves for some time, and I have been following it, and I almost was like, man, I might want to get an Xbox One just for that game. That game looks like, I love pirate stuff. I love pirate stuff. I love Black Flag, Assassin's Creed. I love Rogue, which is the sequel to Black Flag. You should totally buy the remaster. It's excellent. I actually really like. Risen 2 and Risen 3. I just do. They're just these charming games once you get used to the flow and ebb and stuff in those games. They're just really good, I think, underappreciated roleplay games. And pirate games are few and far between. And I just like pirate stuff in general, But the issue with people coming out now and saying, I was wrong about Sea of Thieves, even though these are some of the same YouTubers that were hyping it and talking so good about it. I played the beta for 2 hours. It was excellent. It was awesome. And some people are saying all that good stuff's still there, but when you make a game that's open world, a shared world game, and there's no progression, and there's only 2 ships, there's only 4 weapons, and you get different. There are other weapons, but they're in the same thing where they just look different. A different sniper, a different blunderbuss, a different cutlass. It's just, and you only fight skeletons, and there's no AI enemies, and you get all this bare bones stuff, and the game comes out for $60. Again, it goes back to that whole live service thing where like Sea of Thieves 2 years from now in 2020 is going to be probably like fucking amazing and totally worth your time and effort and money, because it's going to have update after update, just like No Man's Sky. Even this new update's coming, but even if you buy it now, it's so much closer to what it was supposed to be when it came out. It's such a better game. And it really is, because I play it. I love it. I even liked it before those updates, but I'm weird because I really saw that game for what it is. It was like the space version of Journey. But the thing is, with this whole Rare and the Sea of Thieves thing, is like, it's a lot of it is them trying to do sell Game Pass. Part of that is part of that. Rare did make a game, and yes, it looks beautiful and it's pretty, and the ocean is some of the best water physics, but that only carries so far. And Sea of Thieves is a game that is going to be better and better and better as it goes. But it's funny how, and I talked about this in another video. I talked about in my bait and switch video. I feel like this is a bait and switch game. Go check out that video. Look up JuiceMan3941 Gaming Roundtable, the bait and switch, which will explain, because that's a whole nother thing to get into, but it is a bait and switch game, I feel like. And I also feel that Sea of Thieves, is one of those wonderful games that people love to say has the potential to be a better game down the road. And again, it goes back to this whole everyone doing live service stuff. You got Square doing it with Final Fantasy 15. You got EA wanting to do live service stuff. Ubisoft, where the game gets better and better and will have seasons and this and that. Even Blizzard did it with Diablo 3, which I never felt needed seasons and all this other stuff. But it's still a good game. It's just the point that a lot of the good game was already there to begin with. But it didn't release bare bones. But the thing is that this whole idea of them producing a game for $60 and putting very little to no content in it, And then the game will just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding down the road with DLC and updates. Hopefully, most of it's not going to be paid. And yes, you see, these will be great from now. But until then, if you want a better pirate game, you better just might as well stick to Black Flag or even Risen 3 for the love of God. And my point is, I don't understand how people put out all these videos about it. And again, we go back to the same thing that everyone always talks about. Well, it's just a beta. It was a beta. Of course, there's going to be more. But if a beta comes out a couple months before launch, there ain't a whole lot that company's going to be able to do and add that much more, because that takes coding and sourcing and 3D rendering and modeling and all the stuff. They don't have time to do that. Microsoft had a deadline to make sure it was out when Game Pass came out, and that's exactly, or at least close to it or before or whatever, but the point is it's there. This is a business decision on them. Now, Rare, the people who work for them, there's nobody sitting around that was developing the game going like, how come there's only 2 ships? I mean, I'm sure this stuff came up. How come there's only 4 weapons? How come there's only cosmetic stuff? How come there's no progression? It's like B-Dobbins FTW had said, if that was the case, then people would just get bigger ships and band together and then grief everybody else, and then the ocean would be like you couldn't really progress. And I get that, but maybe the game needs that. And I feel bad because I'm glad I didn't buy an Xbox One now. Because of that reason. Like, I'm glad I followed the game long enough long before launch, and then from E3, and just kept following it. But I find it ironic how the same people who put up their videos talking about, oh, Sea of Thieves this and Sea of that, the same channels are now putting up videos. I was wrong about it. 10 hours in, this is the same thing over and over and over again. There's nothing much to it. And it is odd that Rare would make a shared world kind of game and have zero progression and zero stuff, and only 3 types of mission quests, and you fight skeletons or you go find a treasure, the same thing over and over again. And there's no penalty if your character dies, you just restart with all your supplies. It's just strange that they made it the decision that they made. And it goes back to telling you that this is Microsoft owns them. They are a division of them. This is a very business-oriented decision to make the game the way they did it. They want your $60, but they hope that there's enough in there and it'll update it and update it and update it and update it. Now, this whole thing about, again, and I did another video on this, is, we believe that hype. I did a video, I think back in Season 1, where I talked about the hype, surrounding Titanfall and Watch Dogs and Destiny 1, and how none of those games really delivered on any of their promises. And yet, we got burned. Well, I wasn't necessarily burned because I didn't buy Watch Dogs, and I didn't buy Titanfall because even though I had a 360, I didn't buy it. I just didn't. Too many people were talking too much about it, and then I also talked to people 3 weeks later, they weren't playing it no more. And my point is that a lot of the community of gamers out there continuously buy into that hype. They literally buy into it. They're like, oh wow, oh man, I got burned on Watch Dogs, but then there's this game, oh I got burned on that, oh but then the next game, and I got burned on that, and they continue, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 titles later since that time, and they're burnt and burnt and burnt and burnt, and yet here they go again, buying right into the same thing again. And you gotta ask yourself why. Most of the stuff that they show at E3 is all, and I've said this, is all bullshit to begin with. Like, most of that stuff doesn't even come to fruition, You go to a little booth like Spider's booth, and they show you Technomancer, and this is what our game is, and this is what it is. And, it's a really great game. It may not be, the best game, but it's a great game. And it's like, they don't get a big stage presentation. They're not out to sell 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 million copies. They're not. And the thing with Rare doing what they did and not putting hardly anything in the game outside of what I've already stated. Yeah, you can swim under the water, but and find this or that, but treasure's so minimal, and it just doesn't have all the stuff that has. I've watched so many videos now. I think I've watched over 40 videos of the game after the fact it came out, and people are comparing it to No Man's Sky, even though I feel like No Man's Sky had more content than Sea of Thieves did even on launch, but it's still got that problem. And now we're all these people who were putting videos out, loving the game. Oh my God, it's the best. Now have realized, wow, this is all there is. 5-6 hours in, this is I've done. You basically have seen everything. Angry Joe gave it a 4 out of 10. He basically said, in 2-3 hours later, you have seen everything the game has to offer, and that's it. You're done. And I'm like, that's sad. I'm sad to hear that a game like this with such huge potential and could have been awesome at launch is now basically, and I already know this, is turned into two things: a way for Microsoft to sell their Game Pass, and two, um, a game that's going to be a live service game where they will update it and 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 update it. And in 2020, just like the Division, 2.5 years later, Division's excellent. Shame nobody's fucking playing. Like hardly anybody plays the game, even though it's excellent now. And why anybody wants to do that live service stuff, I don't understand. And this is what Sea of Thieves is going to be. It's going to be really, really good. But by the time that this game, after all of its updates and add-ons and everything they end up doing, and hopefully they don't sell us all that, or to you gamers that do own it, no one will probably be playing it because it's 2 years from now. Even if it's a year from now, there's so much good titles coming out. It's almost pointless to think that people a year from now is going to be playing that every day. Even the numbers for Call of Duty are dwindling when it comes to after just a few months now. Versus it used to be played from the month it comes out to the month the new one comes out, and that's dropped, and it's a shame. I don't think, but Rare didn't blatantly lie about anything. He didn't Sean Murray it up. But the point is it's not the same company that made those guys. Like I said, those guys left. The guys that made GoldenEye, Dennis Doak, and those guys, they don't work for them no more. And they got squashed eventually by EA, which is a shame because Pandemic brought us some of the best games. So did Free Radicals and the original people who worked for Rare, and that's where they came from. And I think people who put out these videos saying, well, Rare did this and I don't understand about Rare, and because they have such a pedigree. Well, they don't have that pedigree because the people who made those games don't work for them, haven't for a long, long time. And so that's one thing to talk about, and made that point. And again, I think it's funny to see all these YouTube videos of people saying, I was wrong about Sea of Thieves. Oh boy, was I wrong about Sea of Thieves. Even Clean Prince Gaming, a guy that puts out great essays and stuff, he kept talking about how he was wrong about the game. And he said he played it alpha, he played it beta, but he said probably over 20 times the same stuff that's there, that's when you're a pirate is still fun, it's still there, and it's still there. Like it was like he was trying to soften the blow of his $60 purchase, but he also admitted he was wrong. He knew it was disappointing to him. And so I think that is funny to me to see these YouTube videos come out now about this game. And so I don't know how well the game is selling or anything like that, but I, for one, am glad I dodged a proverbial bullet, Neo style from the Matrix, and didn't drop my money on another system just to get a pirate game that I thought, this or that was going to happen. Thank God I didn't do that. So it's a shame because that game is going to be a live service game, and it will be good. It probably will be great, but it will take time, and I mean a long time. And especially when a game doesn't sell real well like that, or if, let's say, Sea of Thieves hasn't sold well, or now the word's out, so the numbers for sales are dropping, and you're going to see the player count dropping, and that's what you're going to have. The player count will become very little. It's going to be a shame, and I think that anyone out there that bought Sea of Thieves for $60, I'm sorry that you bought it, like that. You got swindled, essentially. And for those of you who got Game Pass and got the game for free or whatever, and then you cancel the Game Pass, but you still have the game because I think that's how the Microsoft stuff's working. It's not streaming; you just get the game. Bravo to you. You basically got one over on them. But I think when it comes to Rare, and being the age that I am, and growing up with their games in the Super Nintendo when I was in high school, when Donkey Kong, I was a freshman when Donkey Kong Country came out, and then going to 64 with GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and then following that company to Free Radicals and playing Time Split. And again, that quality's there, but who's working for Rare is not the same people, and that's the truth. So Rare, the company, is no longer the Rare that was, and that's something that everybody needs to kind of like stop throwing that out there on your YouTube videos. Well, crying about how Rare, they put out this and that. They're not the same game company. They're not, and that's just the real truth of the matter. Anyway, this has been episode 85. Thank you for joining me. I just want to talk a little bit about Rare and the Sea of Thieves and how that the potential is there, but it solely missed its mark by a mile. So again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gaming Roundtable. I hope you join me on the next episode. I'll have another topic to talk about. Please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the like button. Tell your friends about the Juice Man. And as always, gamers, good gaming.